Inside this room, all of my dreams become realities, and some of my realities become dreams.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here? Alive! It's alive! It's alive!
You are listening to The Wilder Ride, getting wilder by the minute. Here are your hosts, Alan Sanders and Walt Murray.
Hey, welcome everybody back to a very special edition of our bonus coverage of Christmas Vacation.
Follow that bouncing ball, folks.
You thought we were done. I mean, we said last week, hey, we dropped the final episode just in time for Christmas Eve. But you know what? Well, we had a surprise. And I think we dropped that surprise back on episode 4 of this past, run of Christmas Vacation.
Yes.
And you and I had chatted about, well, what do we want to do once we get Beverly D'Angelo on with us? And you said, well, do we release it for everybody? Do we kind of keep it? I said, let's do this. Let's cut her in to the show where it's relevant for our Patreon subscribers, because that's really for them.
Yes.
But then let's go ahead and put out a bonus, and we'll do an extra episode of just this interview.
Yes. And I think everybody will be amazed at who Beverly D'Angelo is. This is going to be a fun ride.
Yeah. So, folks, if you did not check out any of the episodes besides the publicly released teaser, the first episode of Christmas Vacation, we did have a chance to have Beverly D'Angelo join us. And so if you missed out on those episodes where she mentioned the things that happen on and off screen and behind the scenes, we wanted to bring you the entire interview. So kick back, relax, and in true Wilder Ride fashion, she could so easily mix with either one of us, Walt, because I think this is the first time you and I had to just sit back and just let her talk.
Yeah, this was like I'm exhausted. This is fun. Y'all are going to love this.
All right. So without further ado, we are joined now by Beverly D'Angelo from the film we've been breaking down during our hiatus from season 1 to season 2. We're doing Christmas Vacation right now, and she's been gracious enough to join us here on The Wilder Ride.
My pleasure.
Thank you so much for agreeing to be part of this. We're doing a podcast on movies and entertainment, and our listeners voted that for the holidays, Christmas Vacation is one of their all-time favorites.
Amazing.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. That's like, that movie, there were a couple of things that happened with that film. First of all, it was smack dab in the middle of everybody really getting what VHS could do. Instead of movies just being released and then disappearing. So VHS was like in full form, full flight in 1989. Everybody had one, and I think that extended its life. And then on top of that, it's the Christmas movie. It kind of took the place of the Wizard of Oz. And so it stayed alive. And those characters who were conceived of as a satire originally in the first one, people, didn't laugh at them. They laughed with them, and everybody identified. It's kind of wonderful.
So in true Griswold fashion, they built our little radio station here right next to railroad tracks. So I'm going to talk right.
I hear it.
You hear it?
I do like it. I heard it.
And like a good waiter, instead of coming just as you start talking, I could have muted our microphones. It waited until just you finished.
Yeah, perfect.
So anyway, well, here's the question, and we're going to just go right at it because I think that our goal is to ask about certain things in the movie, your impressions, and just chat with you. We're going to probably dice it up in the next episodes because we're releasing them from now through Christmas once a week. Right. We break it down. But then we'll probably, after the first of the year, re-release this as just sort of like, hey, if you want to just get the entire interview.
Right, like another thing. I get it.
Yeah.
I'm with you. I did say to Walt that, my I want to become a private investigator. I think I should. Because I'm totally obsessive, and I'm a master of the deep dive research. I mean, that's another thing. So as far as your intro, I looked at your website, got the picture, looked over, all the stuff. I know the origins, and I've read your background and stuff, so I'm good to go.
Awesome.
I'd say we're probably on the same level of knowing each other.
Okay.
Well, and you still agreed to come on.
And actually, you may know us more. All right. Now, Walt, I think you need to take this one because I think the reason Beverly was intrigued enough to actually respond is because of your day job.
That's right.
I want to be a private eye. And when I read on your website that you're a private eye, I thought, I've got to talk to this man. I can be your sidekick. I can do it. I'm a research expert. People call me when they're in lawsuits. People call me when they're in the middle of a divorce. People call me when they start dating someone. There's really nothing I can't find out.
Beverly, that's when people call me. So we're either in good company or not so good company.
Yeah. Well, you know, what I loved about when you talked on the website, Matt, little précis about you talked about growing up in a home that, you know, curiosity and creativity was supported, and that's really what we have in common. That's really what
Well, and you know, something else that we have in common is I spent 9 years as a kid in Columbus, Ohio.
What were the years?
Let's see. We moved to Georgia in 78. So I was there about 69, 70 to 78.
I left in 69, but certainly you would remember the Horseshoe Stadium.
Absolutely.
My grandfather was the architect for that.
I saw that. That is really fascinating.
Yeah. And I'm sure you remember Channel 10.
Oh, absolutely.
My dad, in those years, well, he was there as with Channel 6 because he worked for Taft. He was a vice president of Taft. Then he went up to Buffalo for Taft, for WGR up there. But when he came back to Columbus, which I think was around 72, he came back as the general manager for Radio Ohio and the Wolf Brothers Holdings. So that was WBNS, and they had a few television stations, I think 16 radio stations across the Midwest. He was very involved in media, and so are my younger brothers back there now.
Wow. So is that kind of what got your interest in acting? And I saw that you were a singer. And
No. I wanted to be a singer. I mean, you lived in Columbus. By the time I was 17, I was one of those kids who started school at 4. So I graduated when I was 17. And by the time I was 17, I wanted to get out of there. I was claustrophobic. I was kind of like a rebel without a cause. I wanted to be an artist, but I didn't know what that meant. And I came out to California to work as an inker and painter at Hanna-Barbera Cartoon Studios as a kind of summer job. But I got out here in the summer of 1969, and, you know, that was like the summer of Woodstock and free love and, you know, the counterculture, and I just kind of dove right into that and discovered I could sing. So I pursued life as a singer and really kind of sang my way into acting. My plan had been to be a, you know, singing artist, but the doors that opened rapidly and largely were the doors of cinema, and that was at a really interesting time when, you know, there was a lot of embrace of authentic people. And so the first big movie I did was the film of Hair, where I sang my way into it, and Coal Miner's Daughter, where I literally sang my way into it, because instead of a screen test, I did a vocal test, and Patsy Cline's original producer sent a tape minus her voice, and I sang a couple Patsy Cline songs, and that kind of clinched the deal, because I certainly didn't look like her.
Well, that opens a couple of questions for me.
You know, they did everything they could to make me look like her.
Right.
She was tall and big and brunette.
Well, so have you done, you know, when we see you on screen singing, is that you most of the time singing?
Oh, yeah, that's me.
So you have a fantastic voice.
I've never been done. Thank you. I really appreciate it. You know, I have a whole strange thing with my voice. It's kind of like Chevy has been with his piano playing, but I'm a little bit more into it than he is. You know, as it turned, I had an album deal. I didn't want to release it. Lots of reasons why. I to tell you the truth, I was pretty much between you and me. I was pretty much done with Hollywood by 1981. I kind of looked at the landscape and thought, you know, I'm not going to get the good stuff in life out of this particular setup. And I was married, and my husband was Italian, was based in Italy and then Ireland, and came back here to live kind of quote unquote for good in 1990. But I didn't approach a career in Hollywood with any of the fervor that one can to build like a real, blockbuster, big time career. I basically have just worked with people that I liked or in where I've been invited to work. I never really pushed things. But what I did do is I always kept my music very sacrosanct. And it's been very pure. And I still, to today, but things like, okay, most recently I did like a private party for someone.
Oh, wow.
I did sing at this place called the Viper. I did midnight shows for about 7 years. But, what happened with me, to tell you the truth, is that maybe it's because I'm from Ohio. You lived in Columbus. Well, you know what I mean. I was raised by witnessing a great love affair. My parents got married. Father was 18. My mom was 25. I witnessed a fantastic love affair. They raised 4 kids. My father just passed away this last Monday morning at 12:30 in the morning.
Oh,
really,
wow.
For the past 3 years, he'd just been kind of waiting to see my mother again, who passed away 4 years ago. So I was witness to a fantastic love affair and people who were very devoted to their children. So when I had children very late in life. I got pregnant at 48, gave birth at 49 to twins. And I became a single mother at 52. And I took a look again at the landscape and thought, okay, what's needed here? And what compelled me was to be absolutely hands-on available. And they're now almost 18. And, all of their classmates' mothers and stuff, they're like, oh, what are we going to do about the empty nest? What are we going to do about the empty nest? And I'm like, you know what? I'm good with it. It's going to be okay. We all know what we're doing, and it's been exactly my choice to really step back from anything. I've worked a fair amount, but I have certainly not agreed to do anything that would take me away from them.
Well, you know what they say. I've got 3 in college right now, 1 left, and people keep saying to us, aren't you going to be going through the empty nest syndrome? And I said, you can't miss them if they're always there.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. My son is applied to 8 colleges, but they're all in California. He doesn't want to go to college outside of California. And my daughter hasn't really decided what she wants to do. So I want her to live at home. I really do. I want her to live at home until she, finds her passion or until she goes to school. I'm not opposed to a gap year or something like that as much as I'd like to see her, continue to learn. But some people don't have that path.
Right.
Some people aren't formal education people. I didn't go to college, but that's from another time. But at the same time, I know that my son's making his choices so that he can stay close to home. And I want my daughter to stay home until she figures out what she's doing. So when I think of the empty nest, I just think I don't think it's an empty nest, just one more step that will, it's all been about, instilling in my children values that I'm 100% sure will get them through life. And also, preparing them to really take care of themselves. Because when you prepare a kid to take care of themselves, they're moving toward that always. And I don't know about this empty nest thing. I don't know. It's like, I can't wait to see what that is.
Yeah, me too. Walt, I know you're not far behind me with yours getting out of the house.
Well, my oldest just started college formally this year, and I've got 2 others right behind her. But I've kind of had the same attitude. I went to college, but I didn't really have a whole lot of direction. And somebody today asked me what I want to do with my life.
Everything.
It is. It is. So it's funny that you say that because I've kind of watched so many of the things that you've been in, but particularly the vacation movies. You seem such a natural as an actress, and you and Chevy Chase particularly
I got to tell you
together.
something really funny. I honestly, I was a wild child. I've had a wild life. I've had a wild ride, believe me. And when I was first offered that role, it was my husband who said, "Oh, you should do this." So I said, "Well, look, I'm only 27. I don't want, or 20. How was I? 29, and I'm playing a mother of teenagers, and these are such squares, right?" I always thought of myself as really hip. And so when I played Ellen Griswold the first time, it was truly an acting job. I'm not kidding. I was really acting my reactions, my emotions, everything. And it was all based on my mom, who it was, and the traditional family that now, as I said, I treated myself to the most untraditional life I could make for myself. But I know that traditional life very well. And so I knew, I knew exactly I always viewed those movies, every one of those, and particularly Christmas Vacation, as a love story. And that, for my part of it, this was a woman who would never really honestly consider tearing her family apart or blocking her husband from being who he is. And, that's part of the Griswold family values.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because some of the scenes that we were looking at last week were when the lighting of the house.
The first time when it fails.
The first time when it fails, and then up through when the house actually lights up. And your expressions are so great, because we can see in Ellen, in your expressions, the kind of the, oh my gosh, this is Clark being Clark, but then the supportive wife, and
she loves him.
Yeah, she does, and
she loves him, and
it's a victory.
And as I said, it's an acting job.
Right.
But I'll tell you something about that scene when he goes to light them the first time and it fails. Diane Ladd said, "Oh, I've got a line I want to say," and she improvised that line. I can see it in my mind, and it's beautiful. And I thought that was just such a great line, because that's really how it is for a mother. She played Clark's mother. That's really how it is for a mother. It's like your son endeavors to do something. They might fail, but you can see it in your mind. And it's a beautiful thing. And I do, anyway, going back to my concept that these movies, for me, and the way I approach them, were as romantic comedies and a love story, that just made everything easy. Frankly, I was blessed in that I didn't have to say a lot of stuff. You know what I mean?
With that
so I got to act in reaction to everything, which was really nice.
Well, Beverly, one of the comments that, we made as we were going through the film and kind of analyzing it is you make, and I use this expression, a perfect foil against Chevy Chase, who's sort of the bumbling, sort of stumbling. He's the buffoon. He's making the silly things happen on screen.
It's a great combo.
And you get to play that straight person to kind of balance him out.
Yeah, it's a great combo, and we have great personal chemistry. We tried to make a television series, but, neither one of us, will fit into categories easily if we see a lack of authenticity. So we tried to do a television series, but we were left out of the creative process, and the script was written without our input. And it was kind of just pushed along by the producer and the guy who wrote the script. And they really weren't. It was more like you could tell that their goal was to just kind of produce like a sequel to the Vacation movies. And Chevy and I are in a much different place in our lives. Chevy had, for example, wanted it to be about, an older couple who'd been married for 1,000 years. He wanted that to be the basis of it. There were, so there were problems. There were problems. I know that when they did that last Vacation reboot, it was a whole different thing too.
Mm-hmm.
There's something about the chemistry that Chevy and I had. There's profoundly at the base of the whole thing, John Hughes, who's no longer with us, whose heart really created a whole genre. But he wrote the first Vacation, and then he went on to write all those coming of age movies. And, John was very family-oriented, a very caring person, and he was also he really, really valued authenticity. He wasn't like a show-busy kind of guy. And that was at his core. The first Vacation and the Griswolds were based on a short story he had written about his vacation when he was 58. So these characters came from the Griswolds came from the mind of a man who, had really hardcore family values, to the point where he moved back to Chicago. He left Hollywood fairly early on for someone who, continued to have some success there. But he also wrote Christmas Vacation. He didn't write European Vacation, but that was John's spirit too. This idea that the family unit is everything, and that you weather the storm, and he kind of just, turned a spotlight on, he turned a comical spotlight on the things that every family that sticks together goes together.
I think maybe and that's something that I know Walt really appeals to you, is even though it's a little over the top, let's face it, a lot of times it's way over the top, everyone can identify to some degree with something that's happened to a family like this, like on a vacation.
I know. Well, it's that thing, where you try so hard to make something perfect and it just doesn't work. Everybody's done that.
Beverly, let me ask you, when you were in the first one, did you have any idea that this would grow into a franchise in and of itself?
Okay. Not only did I have no idea, it was the intention of the first one was that it was a satire, and the anticipated audience would be the Saturday Night Live crowd and some fans of Chevy's because he'd done a couple movies with Goldie Hawn. Okay, but it was conceived of as a satire. And I was so detached from it that I was living as I said, I had moved to Italy in 81, and I shot it here, and I worked all the time, but I was based in Italy, so I happened to be in Italy when it came out, and a friend of mine called me and said, "You're in the #1 movie this weekend." Now, what? Yeah, Vacation's #1. I was, Then I put that on my agent calls, like, I think you might want to come back here for a while, because the way I would live is I would just live there until I got offered something that I liked to do. He said, why don't you be around the community a little bit more? This is going to work for you. It never worked for me emotionally, although I still work, and it's not like I'm complaining or anything like that. But as far as my fulfillment, it's really come from my family, which is ironic, because as I said, wild child, wild life. First time I played that character, I considered it an acting assignment. Like, how am I going to condense my crazy, wild self into this little suburban wife,
Well, that had to be a stretch, because she is definitely
it was a stretch for me.
The suburban housewife.
It was a stretch for me. But
there was a genuineness in it, and still to this day, when I watch even Christmas Vacation, your character, for me, because what appeals to me is more of the realistic portrayals, and I just love the way you do act as a counterbalance, but you're also very real, and I love that.
Well, I really appreciate that. Thanks a lot. It's so weird. When I had kids, I went back to, I just went back to the way I was raised, as far as how I thought my kids should be raised. It's very non-Hollywood existence. In fact, I even felt, my daughter wants to be an actress, and I even had the slightest, it went away right away, but I had the slightest little touch of guilt, being well, why didn't I kind of push her into that fast track of all those girls out here, the young girls who are modeling, and they're all best friends, and they've got gigantic Instagram accounts. And why didn't I do it? But I didn't want to do it.
Well, actually, but when you talk to a lot of Hollywood actors, a lot of them say, I don't want my kids involved with this at all.
Well, it comes down to authenticity. It comes down to being real. Because, you change in proportion to how people react to you. Mm. It's a peril of the business, too, that you get, when you get a lot of fame, you can really get caught in a bubble.
Let me ask you this question. The kids changed from one movie to the next. You and Chevy Chase stayed the same.
Yeah.
What was it like to work with now a very famous Johnny Galecki and a very famous Juliette Lewis?
I had worked with her father in Every Which Way But Loose.
Right.
Which is one of my favorite movies, and I'm dying to ask you about.
I met Juliet when she was like, I think, born or something. I don't know, but I had worked with Jeffrey and was good friends with Jeffrey from 1976, doing Every Which Way But Loose, and so that was wonderful. And she was just coming into her own. She was fantastic. You just knew she was going to be a little star. And Johnny Galecki was the sweetest boy of all, and he was very short, and, Chevy was very, very overpowering. Chevy is overpowering. And I looked at this sweet little boy who was it's very hard to find real kids, too, because a lot of them at a young age are just like so phony, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. But he was really a great, solid young boy. And so I started singing this song every time he was on set. I'd go, "Oh, Johnny Galecki is a big, big man." and I'd get Chevy to sing it too. And he would just smile. He was just the sweetest, politest, most well-behaved, wonderful, solid, rock-solid kid. And it has been an enormous pleasure to see his path as an actor and what he's gotten for himself out of this industry. I just couldn't be prouder. He also, has worked so long with the great Chuck Lorre. And that's another guy who is just a fantastic. I was lucky enough to do a few episodes with Mom. Chuck Lorre is a god. And in fact, on that set, they would say, the code word here is the code phrase here is what we say is, "In Chuck we trust." Because Chuck Lorre could solve any problem, figure out anything. I mean, he's just a wonderful person. So anyway, he's the person who produced Big Bang Theory, mm-hmm. and we all know Johnny from that more than anything else, really. And he's just fantastic. It's been thrilling to see him grow up, on screen.
Well, even in that scene that we were talking about last week, one of my favorite lines of his, really one of my favorite lines in the movie, is when Chevy looks down and says, "One of these lights is out," and Johnny Galecki turns around and goes, "Oh gosh, I've got to go," and he goes through that list of all those things. Go, yeah. And you could see in that he had the talent, that he really is a good actor.
He just knew what he was doing. Really solid, emotionally solid, a strong person, a young person, but a strong person.
Well, so you've been in each of the vacation movies, I think, except for the one that maybe...
No, I've been in every single one.
Okay. So what is...
Except for which one?
I was thinking the one that was in Hawaii you might not have been in, that was kind of a side...
A Hawaii vacation?
Yeah, it was one that had just Cousin Eddie, I think, is the only one of the cast.
Oh, that was a TV thing. They wanted me to do it, and I had just had kids. And Randy's wife was saying, "Well, Meg Ryan made a movie when her child was only 6 weeks old." And I said, "Sorry."
Yeah, well,
not my style.
No, I don't. I don't.
And so, I remember that was a TV thing, and Maddie wanted me to do that too. I think Maddie Simmons produced that, but that wasn't a theatrical film, and that was a Cousin Eddie thing.
Right.
Gotcha.
And I don't blame you for not wanting to be.
No, and Chevy wasn't in it either. So.
No. So of the vacation movies, do you kind of look at all of them equally and say, well,
is this like which one of your kids is your favorite, Walt?
Yeah. and as you look at those movies and the evolution of them, do you see it as kind of a natural evolution from movie to movie, or do you see them as kind of separate characters, or how do you see each of the movies?
What, my character or the films? What do you mean?
Well, and I don't know if you can separate them out. How do you see your characters as you developed through those movies?
Well, I did the bulk of the work. I'll tell you, on Christmas Vacation, I didn't know what to do, and I actually hired an acting coach, and I took the script to him, and I said, "You've got to read this thing, because I don't know how to do this. I don't know what I can do. I have very few lines, and I really don't do anything that's as a protagonist. So I don't know what to do." And he read it, and he said, "You're right. There's not a lot in here, but we'll turn it into something." So my work always on those vacation movies has been trying to get something in there that's human, so that there's a real person there. So it's not just on paper, and now here comes the wife.
Right.
You know what I mean? And
And
honestly, it's not the easiest thing in the world to do when it isn't written like that. So I've always kind of acted and kind of pushed against what I've had to work with, except for the first one.
Well, you killed in the kitchen when, and we use this line around my house around the holidays, when you said, it's the holidays and we're all miserable.
Oh, yeah, that was a good line. That was a good line.
That's a great line. And then immediately your mom says, are you smoking? And you've hardly even lit the cigarette.
Right.
So you do really
You
capture the audience a lot of times. And do you realize when you do that, do you ever have the line when you deliver it and you just go, yeah, that's really going to kill? Or do you kind of walk off going, I hope people like this?
That's a really, really great question. I suppose at this point I do. I mean, there were, like, when I was doing Insatiable and Shooter in the past year, I was aware that there were some lines that you really needed to land. But I'll tell you something. Speaking of working against things, I've always tried to, I think, deliver a cliche in a way that's not a cliche. And it's a problem because sometimes, a director or a writer just really want things to be said the way they're written. Like, everybody knows, what's a phrase that we always say, that everybody says? How you doing? Or what's something that everybody says? A line like,
call you later.
I'll call you later. Okay, let's take I'll call you later. So, you see it on paper. Now, everybody knows that, like, that means the character goes, okay, I'll call you later. But I'm so nutty that, like, when I see lines like that, I want to mess around with them. I want to make them more unique. So I go, like, I'll call you later. Or I don't know. I mean,
right? No,
that's not a good example. But that's kind of, maybe because it's not the best line. But
I think we know what you're saying.
That's what I'm trying to say. That the kind of work that's been available to me, I've been in a position more often than not of trying to make something meaningful that wasn't written with that intention, or trying to make something unique that was not particularly unique.
Well, and when you're dealing with the content that you're dealing with Christmas, you're dealing with a family vacation. There is a lot in there that's cliche. And
I know.
So for you to be able to capture that and put that out in a way where, like,
it's the first time that it's happened.
Yeah, right. And 30 years later, we're still talking about that. I think that really is
an actor's job. An actor's job is to, no matter what take it is, it's to experience what's happening for the first time.
All right. Well, I know your son may text any moment, so we want to get a few more things in because I want to leave you some time to plug whatever you might be working on as well. I heard you might be thinking, besides changing careers and becoming a PI, that you might be thinking about a podcast
I'm really
of your
serious.
own.
Well, I
want to be a PI. I was gonna, I went online to see what the application form was for the CIA.
Oh.
And I'm filling it out, and then I get to some of these questions. I went, "Oops, no, I'm not applying to the CIA, but I could be a private detective."
Yeah, the bar is a lot different.
The bar is a lot different. Let's face it.
Let me ask you a question about late in the movie, because it obviously takes a turn off the rails when Cousin Eddie decides, hey, Clark wants to kidnap his boss and bring him here. I'll go do that. There's a take, and I think were quoted as saying that you decided on an improv moment to grab Chevy Chase's crotch when the SWAT team comes in.
Yeah, and you know what? Okay, so to give you an idea of as I said, I didn't have a lot to do in that movie. I kind of willed that character to life, you know what I mean? And even the orientation of shooting the film, my stuff was shot like a kind of very hurriedly and in between setups for other. I mean, it was a thing. And the reason that I got away with that is because the director wasn't looking at anything I was doing. and I thought, you know what? Nobody on this set is watching anything I'm doing or paying any attention to if I'm doing it well or not well or what I'm saying. So I've got some freedom here. And I did say to Chevy, I'm going to try this. No one's going to notice what I'm doing. You watch. They're going to be looking at, something else, but they're not going to be looking at me for this take. I knew the audience would be, but I knew that I knew the director wouldn't be. He was very visually oriented, and he was going to look at the whole big picture, not the specifics, right?
Mm-hmm.
He had come from commercials. So anyway, I did it, and then we did another take. We did a couple more takes, and I didn't do it. We kept doing takes, and then we were up against a time crunch. And so I said, Chevy, I'm going to do this now. Nobody's going to notice it. So we did it. And we went, okay, cut print. Okay, we're done with that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think they knew about it till they were in the editing room.
And that's that you only did one take that way, and that happens to be the one they chose.
Oh, well, because they got it then, but nobody knew except me and Chevy that that's what happened when we were shooting it. And
that's one of the funniest things in the movie. That's something that people bring up over and over again.
Well, it's interesting because, I'm telling you, the way that I got away with that is because what I was doing was not being focused on in that scene. The eyes didn't. There were a whole bunch of characters in there, and then I knew that once I got out to the audience, they were going to be watching me and Chevy. They were going to be watching me. Mm-hmm. Their eyes weren't going to be up, 3 feet higher on his face. I knew that, and I knew I had a white blouse on, and I knew I was bending down, and I knew that my audience was going to wonder what I was doing. So I went for it.
That is awesome. Well, how is it working with someone who is such a big personality like that? And, you never seem to be diminished. You're always
Chevy's
a focal
such a
point.
complicated and wonderful person. He calls me his second wife. We've known each other. Well, we met in '82. So we have a very, very long-term professional and personal relationship. We did the vacation movies. We also did, we did a campaign for, not the Gap, the clothing line. It's a big clothing line. Old Navy.
Old Navy, right, yeah, the whole series of commercials.
And then we did a spokesman thing for Home Away, like, vacation rental thing. I mean,
right.
We've never done an autograph signing together, which we should probably do sometime. But we know so much about each other's lives and how each other feels and the ups and downs and all that kind of stuff. And it's a very long-term relationship. So that goes into everything. When we work together, and the only time it hasn't been really, really great was when we tried to do a pilot. It just went awry. It was the wrong people in the mix. We were too far removed from people that actually knew us, and they were kind of parodying what they thought Clark and Ellen should be, and our whole thing is that, it was really the chemistry, as much as I said about John Hughes, it was the chemistry and understanding between me and Chevy that really made those characters.
You've talked a lot about Chevy Chase, and that makes sense. He's sort of the core of this, but so many people also call out Randy Quaid's character of Crazy Cousin Eddie.
Oh, Randy, can you believe it? That's what my husband said. When I first read the script, I said, wait a minute, I'm 29, I can't play a mother of 15-year-old kids, and there's a dog in it. So it's like everything that you're not supposed to do. You're never supposed to act with like kids and dogs. That's like a rule,
Right.
And here I was, I was just coming off of Coal Miner's Daughter. I mean, I had a bona fide, critical and public.
Well, that was a Golden Globe nomination for you, right?
Yeah. And so, so there were things going on, and I was looking at my career in a different way. But my husband said, but look at this cousin. He was Italian. He said, look at this Cousin Eddie character. He said, he's hysterical. And I went, okay. So I went and met Chevy, and it was so much fun. The meeting that I had with him, my audition or whatever it was was just fun. And these were fun people. And it was a little teeny movie. A $4 million budget. It was going to be a summer movie for the Saturday Night Live crowd, a satire, a biting satire, really. And it was anything but that, and so it was, thank goodness I married that man.
Well, and it's funny because that's where I came from. I grew up watching that group of Saturday Night Live, and the John Belushi and that whole group. And so I was a Chevy Chase fan from that, and so I immediately got hooked into Vacation. And my parents probably weren't as thrilled about that, but
yes.
That was my kind of humor and my kind of movie. And then, of course, going through European Vacation and Christmas Vacation. And to this day, Christmas Vacation is still one of my favorite movies. But I was going to say, I think that there are so many layers to the vacation movies and to those family relationships and things like that. And I was able to, it's a long story that I'll make very short, but
get to a point.
I was able to meet Michael Kaplan. And who did the costume?
Oh, the costume designer.
Yes, and
great.
And I had asked him about the Randy Quaid character in Christmas Vacation.
Yes.
I said, "Where did you come up with those crazy clothes?"
Randy did.
Yeah, and he said
Randy was the one who thought of the Dickie, the black Dickie. The was Randy's idea.
Near see-through
the black
white
Dickie under the white sweater.
Yes, and I asked Michael about one of the other. I think it was the one of the costumes he was wearing, and I said, "Where did you come up with that?" And he said, "Oh, family members. We all kind of kept talking about our family members."
Michael Kaplan's family members.
Yeah, Michael.
He had a cousin Eddie in his family.
No, he said some of the clothing.
I had no idea.
Some of the family members, and he said Randy Quaid.
The polyester.
Yes, and he said all that came from us talking about our family members and going, "Well, what would our crazy uncle
hilarious.
wear?" And
I had no idea. Poor Randy, I think, went off the rails.
He did.
I was going to ask the question because you see all the behind the scenes now, and they don't. Yeah. I wish they had more that we could go back.
It wasn't like that then, and I did Streetcar Named Desire with Randy. Randy played Mitch in Streetcar Named Desire, and I think he got an Emmy nomination for that too. I did, but he did. So I did drama with him,
Right,
and he was great. He went nuts.
Yeah,
I don't know what
did.
happened.
Well, the question I want to ask was because we don't see as many outtakes on the older movies. Like today, when you buy a Blu-ray, it's got 25 minutes of deleted scenes and outtakes.
Yeah, but you know why? Because they're shot on digital, and digital film doesn't cost anything.
That's true.
Oh,
but,
that was a good point.
When it costs, $100 just to process a mag, 10 minutes of film. You didn't have a lot of outtakes. You got it and you moved on. You only printed what you could use.
That's a good point. Well, the question I had is for obviously between Chevy Chase and Randy Quaid, there's got to be a lot of just either improv or just it's so funny that the cast or the crew breaks. Was there any one particular scene in Christmas Vacation where it was just really hard to keep it together?
I think there were some times, I remember we had a contest going. I'd heard about this contest from somebody or somebody. I can't remember who told me if it was from that cast. There were so many great actors on that, older actors. But we had a contest going that you got 5 points if you could do the scene sitting down. And you got 10 points if you could do the scene lying down. And you got 1,000 points if you could do it asleep. And Bill Hickey pulled it off. There was a scene where he's just lying on a couch and he's asleep. But it was we talk about it's called blocking,
Uh-huh.
And the director said, I see it like you're over here and you're in, and you'd see all this go. I feel like maybe I'd be sitting down, and she'd go, yeah, and I'd be sitting next to her. She'd be on my lap, and then I think I'd be, or like we'd do the rehearsal and go like we'd start on our feet and just rehearse the scene for the director and for the lighting people to see what we were going to do, because sometimes until recently, really, until the advent of digital. Well, okay, never mind. I'll leave that piece out. But,
okay.
We did do rehearsals where the actors kind of got to choose how they were going to play the scene as far as where they would be standing and stuff. And, we'd gravitate toward sitting and lying down to try to get points that day. So yeah, there was fun stuff going on. It was like there was always, the thing about Randy being in, like Randy wasn't in European Vacation. The thing about Randy's presence, when Randy and Miriam were present, it made it more like a repertory company, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like we were the core of the repertory company, and then we'd gather up, you know, new kids and new this and new that, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It was kind of like the most meticulous running TV series.
Well, let me ask you about another scene then, because there's one scene, and it's actually one of my favorites, when an actor when a character has a complete nut-up meltdown, and when Clark has his whole string of, I think, 34 different expletive / crazy words about the boss, and everyone's standing around watching him.
Oh, yeah, you know, those words, if you look at it really closely, here's what I want you to do. If you look at it really closely, you will notice that Chevy's eyes move, okay?
Uh-huh.
And that's because in the shot, when it's over the backs of our heads onto him, we each have a big poster board around our necks for him to read the lines.
That is crazy.
That's awesome.
Well, it is awesome, and I'll tell you, and it means even more when you watch that scene knowing that, because, you know, acting isn't really just about memorizing lines, you know,
mm-hmm.
and there are times when it's really important to have the security of a monologue there, so that you're not thinking, what the next thing I'm going to say. So you're just acting it. And for Chevy, that's a situation that works for him. You know, he's also, Chevy's, you know, comes from the world of writing, and he's also, you know, a live guy. He's live. And I would notice that in between takes, he'd play poker endlessly, and I was convinced it was because it kept him alive, kept him in the moment. You know, he didn't go back to his trailer and study lines, or, you know, he played poker to stay alive in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And when he, you know, we were putting on these poster boards, and I was like, Chevy, Jesus, didn't you do your homework? Like, nope. And so we put on these signs, and I think, and now the scene's gonna be awful because he doesn't know his lines. And I watched, I was like, yes, go, brilliant, perfect. You know what I mean?
Well, and there's a sharpness to his acting. Where even though he is a real live wire, there's nothing sloppy about it. It's all very sharp, and
because he's a sharp guy. He's a sharp guy. He's really, 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 really smart, and he's, you know, kind of been doomed to be the smartest guy in the room of his generation. And then I think I don't know what happened with Community, but I don't, he's not, you know, he's not an old fuddy-duddy.
No.
And you know, he's a smart guy. Now look, I want to tell you this, and I'll end with saying I love him. And I wanted to say this because I have to go now. I wanted to say this too, is that, you know, I noticed in one of these emails that you guys were interested in talking about, why do I think it's persevered? And maybe you even asked me that at the beginning of this. But I think that, you know, those vacation movies, and especially Christmas Vacation, you know, they say, I understand, I've been there, and there's a happy ending. And I think that, you know, in proportion to how much we all need a happy ending, in proportion to how much we all need examples of how, you know, completely different people with completely different points of view coming from completely different backgrounds can get along if there's love there, no matter what. You know, I like to think that as a Christmas movie, you know, it's a good one. You know, that it contains that.
Well, it's definitely, I know Walt's favorite. He watches it annually. We just actually
Good boy,
watched
Walt.
it.
Yeah.
Walt, give me a job. Help me. Give me a case.
Beverly, I want you to call me tomorrow, and we need to talk about this.
No, I'm serious.
I am too.
I am as serious as a heart attack. I want to be a private eye. I would be the greatest private eye ever.
Well, and I agree with you because you have the gift of gab.
Think of this. The reason that I thought I'd be great in the CIA was because no one would question what I was doing there. Oh, hi, I just happened to be in Brookline because I'm doing an autograph signing here. By the way, did you kill your wife? You know what I mean?
Right. Well,
and no one would question it.
No.
Hi, I'm at a fundraiser. How are you doing? Oh, you know, do you like the color blue? Have you ever poisoned a woman in a blue dress? I mean, you know what I mean? Like, I wouldn't do it like that, but
right.
You know.
Well, I know you.
But as far as access, here's my point. My point is access. I have access, and I have that weird kind of in plain sight anonymity.
Well, and there are some tricks of the trade that you kill. Yeah, because
I want a job as a private eye.
Well, you call me tomorrow, and we will talk about this.
Okay, I have to go. Now I have to go back to my real life.
I know you got to leave.
Fantasy life.
I wanted to leave you the last word about what you're working on, anything you want to plug, so that way the audience that's listening and revisiting
my
Vacation.
podcast is going to become. I'm going to drop it when I have 6 pristine ones in the can that I'm working on right now. Just need one more. It's called I'm Bev D'Angelo and I'm Obsessed. ... And here's what it's about. I do have this. I am very comfortable in the deep dive waters. I am I'm far more comfortable, just turning over every stone and examining everything that of any topic that interests me than I am in making small talk. Now, some people will call it like OCD. It's not OCD. It's just this love of detail and a desire to go deep. And I consider it my superpower. But I do think that everyone with superpower owes it to, give back. And so with this podcast, what I'm doing is I'm taking people on the trip with me and delivering the treasure that I've found. It can be about Steve Perry. I've got one about Steve Perry where this was before his album came out, though, by the way, where I kind of explore his life and come up with the variables and give you ideas of what you've got in common and how just examining Steve Perry as a person can make you a better person. I've got it all wrapped up in that. I also did a session. I've got one coming out with a Dr. Stephanie Fine, who's an internist. She specializes in midlife weight gain, and she works in a therapeutical way also. So I interviewed her and did an online session with her.
Very cool.
Things like that. So it's all about the deep dive.
Will that be dropping typical places, iTunes and Google Play and all those podcatchers?
I'm doing it in collaboration with Starburns Audio right now, and all I'm focused on right now are just getting, good episodes. I've got a marvelous woman who's been in the industry forever, Dolores Robinson, and I've got her committed. I want to do one or a few episodes that I'm going to call the Council of Elders, where I'll be interviewing women who are able to talk about what they've learned in a way, and most of them have extraordinary lives, but I've got my eye on some women that really, you wouldn't say they have extraordinary lives, but the basis for this is that I do believe in a council of elders, and I think that every woman over 60 has a story to tell that can help other women. So there'll be a few episodes about that. But I've got to go pick up my son.
Yes,
all right,
we'll let Thank you
go.
So much, Beverly. And do call me because I want to talk PI stuff with you.
I'm going to call you.
All right, Beverly D'Angelo, thanks so much for taking time with us.
You don't have to. And look, you don't have to push my podcast yet. I'll call you back when I'm going to drop.
Sounds like a plan.
Great.
Okay.
And we'll spotlight you because we want to make sure that you get as much. Not that you need any help on our end, but we'll do what we can.
Thank you
my
so
help right
much.
now is I got to say goodbye.
All right, goodbye,
thank
Beverly.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye bye.
There you are, Beverly D'Angelo, joining us here on the Wilder Ride.
Well, I have to say I'm blown away. I am absolutely blown away. And we even got to talk about a couple of the scenes.
She's much like you.
Man.
At some point, we had to focus back on what we're talking about right now.
And Chevy Chase is live wire, but Beverly D'Angelo, man, she is awesome.
Yeah, no, that was very, very cool. And maybe we'll be able to get her again. She already said when her podcast is ready to go live, she'll...
I'd love to talk to her.
So that's a special little edition here. Now, you've actually heard a lot of the small little outtakes from this interview over the course of the remaining episodes of National Lampoon's Christmas Vacation here on the Wilder Ride. But thanks to Walt reaching out, thanks to her agent, and then her being interested in doing this, we were able to bring her on, and we decided, you know what, let's go ahead and release to the general public. If you're not a subscriber, you chose not to become a patron, at least you get a chance to hear the entire interview that we were able to then use through the rest of the podcast.
Absolutely.
So, Walt, thank you for that work.
Oh, well, I'm just thrilled, and I'm going to have to reach out to those folks and let them know how much we appreciate it because this was fantastic.
Yeah, so hopefully you guys learned a little bit about Beverly D'Angelo, where she is, where she came from, and how she got involved in the Vacation series and being involved in Christmas Vacation. And I like what she said. She wanted to bring a realness to it, and that's something I've commented on multiple times through our podcast. Is I think I'm drawn to her character because she is very real. Because I think I need that. As the watcher of this movie, I can't get into the vortex of stupidity that is Chevy Chase, but because of her, I'm okay. Because she helps keep me grounded.
Well, she seems like your friend's mom.
Right.
You know, she comes across that way.
My friend's hot mom.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's funny that she said that she doesn't have a whole lot of lines because, like,
Stacy's
there's
mom
so many.
has got it going on.
Yeah, what is the daughter's name?
No, I wasn't going to use the real daughter. I can't do that. I don't want to do that.
Well, I'm, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, like, she doesn't have a ton of lines, but she delivers them with a lot of.
But you know what? Had she not said that, I never thought of her as having a lesser role because she's so significant in my mind, being there and grounding Chevy Chase, grounding the kids, being sort of always there, kind of like moms. They're always there trying to take care of everybody, even if they're not saying a lot. They're so important. That's why every athlete, no matter how much dad has been working with them from the time they could crawl to they could hit to they could get out on the college field, what does the kid do the very first time the camera's on him? Hi, Mom.
Yeah, exactly right.
Never says hi, Dad.
It's funny that she talks about what a stretch it is for her to play that part because she is so convincing as a mom. But after talking to her for an hour, I can see what she's talking about, that she is just a firecracker.
Yeah, she's a live wire herself.
She is.
So, well, I hope everyone out there, I hope you've enjoyed this episode, this special edition. This was for our patrons as well as our non-patrons. Consider joining our Patreon page because we're going to continue to look for bonus content and continue to reach out to folks to be part of this as we break down these movies. And sometimes you guys will get to pick the movies we're doing as well. We often put it to a vote, and the last two we've done this season, I guess off season for us,
yes,
have been audience participation, our listeners.
That's right. And, you know, we keep talking about the long list of movies that we want to cover, so I think we got a lot coming in the future.
All right, patreon.com/The Wilder Ride is where you go if you want to catch back on all the bonus material you might have missed. And if you are listening right now for the first time and are not in our Facebook group, Walt, how do they join?
Yes, you definitely want to go to facebook.com/The Wilder Ride and then join our listeners group from there. There will just be a couple of real quick questions to make sure you're not a bot or anything crazy like that, and you can get in on the conversation.
And that's going to do it for us. Thanks everybody, and thanks Beverly for being here on The Wilder Ride.
Thank you, everybody, and we look forward to Blazing Saddles coming early next year.
Pretty darn soon.
Absolutely.
It's that time. Christmas time is here. Everybody knows there's not a better time of year.
He rode a blazing saddle, he wore a shining star. His job to offer battle to bad men near and far.